The 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season has come to an end. We are streaming live on YouTube as we're talking about everything that just happened out at Phoenix or didn't happen if you watched the first two stages, because damn, that was a boring race for at least the first part. But we powered through it. Joey Logano is your 2022 NASCAR Cup Series champion, the two-time champ now. Paul Wolfe, his crew chief, also a two-time champ now as well. Team Penske getting it done. The finishing order, right away, we're getting right into it. I'm Alan Bailey. Make sure that you mash that subscribe button because we're going to talk about everything we just saw out at Phoenix. We will take you out to the media center as soon as the championship four make their way into the media center. Looking at some cams that are live at the track right now. Joey Logano is going down pit road right now, and my dog is choosing now to throw up on my couch. Lovely. But Joey Logano going down pit road right now with his flag, winner of the championship, and he's going to be getting onto the stage here momentarily. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I told you we will take you out to the media center as soon as they have drivers appear there. I'll show you a look at that video real quick. There's a look at our media center cam, courtesy of our friends over at NASCAR. So yes, they are patiently awaiting the actual championship four from getting on in there. We will hear from Paul Wolfe. We will hear from Joey Logano. We will hear from Christopher Bell, from Chase Elliott, and from Chastain at some point in the program. We'll take you out to the media center for their media availability. I'm Alan Bailey. The chat is open. Let me know what you think in the comments because I do want to hear from you guys on this one because I'm extremely curious. And my dog's coughing up again. Go figure. But I want to hear what you guys have to say. Yeah, the first two stages, pretty kind of boring. I'll say it. I'll admit it. It was really boring the first few stages because there wasn't a whole lot that was happening. The first two stages essentially went caution-free. We did have that caution in stage number 2, kind of, but everybody pitted. It was never mind. Basically, the first two stages were extremely boring. Joey Logano led the entire first stage, and I don't want to call it a snooze fest, but it very much was a racer's race where there's no cautions. You don't get to bunch them up. You just get in there and see what your car has. So to a hardcore fan like me and a nerd, I loved it. I thought it was very interesting in that you actually got to see these guys. It actually came down to who runs the better race, and Joey ran the better race. And honestly, I thought, oh man, is Joey going to run away with this thing? This is going to be really boring. And thank goodness that wasn't the case because we did not get that dominance out of one particular driver. Yes, Joey did dominate, but he started to kind of go away at the end of stage 2 in particular because his teammate was starting to really come alive in the 12 of Ryan Blaney, and you thought for a second, oh, cool, are we going to get a not championship 4 driver winning this race? Could the 12th car actually win the race and then go on to become, I think it's the 20th different winner, set the new record? It would have been great. That would have been phenomenal, but that's not what we're getting. As Joey Logano getting out of his car right now on the stage out at Phoenix for the hero shot of yay with the steering wheel and all that stuff. I'd love to give you that live footage, but our friends at NBC own that footage and they haven't put it up yet, so we can't give it to you yet. Otherwise, your boy's gonna be in trouble. So just honestly phenomenal race. I don't know what to say about it. Going through the finishing order, you have Joey Logano winning the race and the championship. Chase Briscoe, who won this race earlier in the season, who came alive right there in the middle of the race, comes home second. You got Ryan Blaney coming home third. Chastain fell to fourth. He comes home fourth in this race. You have William Byron fifth. Good, strong year for them. Kevin Harvick, who's coming home sixth. Kyle Busch in his final run in that number 18 for Joe Gibbs Racing, and what was a very difficult day for the Gibbs organization, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Kyle Busch comes home a very respectable 7th place finish. You have Denny Hamlin, who ends his season with an 8th place finish. You have Austin Cindric, who comes home 9th out here, Rookie of the Year right there, Austin Cindric. And then you have Kyle Larson, who rounds out the top 10, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Larson probably didn't win the Owners' Championship. just probably. Christopher Bell, who was having some engine issues there mid-race and was kind of sluggish, let's just say, from that point on, hangs on for an 11th place finish. AJ Allmendinger, who's taking over that number 16 car full-time next year, comes home 12th. 13th, we find Austin Dillon. We find Eric Jones carrying the banner for Petty GMS Johnson Motorsports now, I guess. 14th, you have Cole Custard, who comes home 15th, respectable. Still not sure what the future holds for him, but we'll keep an eye on him. Bubba Wallace in the number 45 does come home 16th. You have Daniel Hemrick, who comes home 17th in the 23 car. Ty Gibbs was supposed to be in that car. Hemrick got tapped at the very last second to get in that car himself. And honestly, respectable job under the circumstances. Corey LaJoie coming home 18th. 19th, we have Martin Truex Jr. Eric Amarola, who is back in the 10 car next year, comes home 21st. You have Chris Buescher 22nd, 23rd. 2 laps down, you have Daniel Suarez. Tyler Reddick in his final ride in that 8 car for RCR, 24th. 25th, we have Michael McDowell. Justin Haley in the number 31, also 2 laps down in 26. Ty Dillon in his final ride in that Petty GMS number 42, coming home 27th. Todd Gilliland, the rookie, still not sure if he's back in that car next year, coming home 28th. Chase Elliott finished 3 laps down in 29th, as Joey Logano's on the stage right now getting the championship trophy presentation from the president of NASCAR. Alex Bowman, who returned to the car after sustaining a concussion at Texas a few weeks ago, returned to the car for this one race at his hometown track, comes home 30th, 4 laps down. Cody Ware is 31st, 5 laps down. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., problems early on for him, comes home 32nd. BJ McLeod comes home 33rd. You have Garrett Smithley in the 15 coming home 34th. 35th, you have Brad Keselowski, who had that engine fire, or I should say the rubber buildup fire in his front end. And Landon Castle, his final ride in the 77, also coming home 36th, as we will take you out to the media center here momentarily, as Chase Elliott has walked into the media center now, as we will pull that up for you. Waiting to hear from Chase.
Two, 1, 2. Okay, we are
now
joined by Chase Elliott. If you have a question for Chase, please raise your hand. We'll get right to questions. We'll start here with Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Can you just kind of explain or walk us through the situation with the one car and what happened there, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You got dumped, Chase.
But, looking forward to the off season, and I'm really proud of our team for the fight that we put in today, and felt like we had just kind of peaked right there, before we crashed, and felt like we got our car driving pretty good. We just had our best pit stop of the day, so that was all really solid, and heck, we were right there next to 22. So yeah, thought we had a shot at it all the way up until we didn't. And that is, unfortunately, how it goes sometimes.
Any more questions for Chase? Go to Matt.
Matt Weaver, Racing America, obviously another kind of flat track. So it was a track position race. Do you feel like you ever really got a chance to show what that car was? Because we saw the 22 when he lost track position. He struggled for a little bit too. So did you ever get the chance to show what the car could have been had you got track position?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I felt like we had gotten it driving about as good as it had been all weekend, honestly. Like when we split the stage and some of those guys stayed out and ran along and we went a lap down and made our lap back up there under green, that run, I thought our car was driving pretty good. We had been adjusting on it up until that point. Yeah, and I thought we'd gotten to a pretty decent spot, but obviously it's hard to tell. We were out there on fresher tires and other guys were on old stuff, so was looking forward to seeing if that held true. But from where I sat, obviously it's difficult because you don't have a lot to gauge off of pace-wise. But I feel like our balance was getting pretty close, so that was good. But until you kind of get back in the mix and reset there, it is tough to say. Would have loved to see what it looked like, on the front couple of rows. I felt like, we just had, like I said a second ago, we just had our best pit stop of the day. Guys are rolling there on pit road, and would love to shot there at the end, but that's the way it works.
Go to Justin.
Justin Schuler kicking the tires. Chase, I know it's not the finish you wanted, but
what? Chase was so pissed to kick the whole stream down. But, I mean, you look at Chase Elliott, he really didn't have the car. I'm sorry. He didn't. Like, we could sit here and we can debate and be like, oh, yeah, no, it's fine or whatever. But it just isn't, because he did not have a winning car at all. At all. He was not in contention. And honestly, kudos to them for pitting when they did, because it actually did make things a little more interesting. It definitely brought in the, maybe he will show up and have something different. But at the end of the day, it didn't, as we take you back out to the media center.
Justin.
What do you got to say, Chase?
Justin Schuler kicking the tires. Chase, I know it's not the finish you wanted, but
technical issues, and we do apologize for that coming from the NASCAR stream, but that's fine. I mean, honestly, I'm dumbfounded that this is the Chase Elliott that showed up. I should have expected it, like we should have expected it, but it was still kind of a shock that this is where we were. And that this is where that team was, because Chase Elliott should have come in here and dominated. Look at what he did 2 years ago. He absolutely had a phenomenal car. He should have been in contention in some capacity, but he wasn't, which is just bizarre. That's not the that's the Chase Elliott that showed up. I honestly wish that he would have been a factor. That would have been great. And I think we're done from the media center out at Phoenix, as the stream seems to be down from NASCAR. So, we'll get you back out there if it comes back up here. But honestly, I'm disappointed in Chase Elliott as a driver is an understatement, man, because the kid should have been good, should have been significantly better than this. He should have honestly been a contender, or at least run in the top 10, and he didn't do that. He didn't show what that car had all season long, and really a couple of weeks before the actual playoffs started, he started to just fall apart at the seams, and that's kind of what the Chase Elliott is that had been showing up these last few weeks. Does that mean that, Chase is never going to win another title? But no, I don't know about that necessarily. But the last 2 seasons, this team has had a pretty decent run going, especially this season, has had a pretty decent run going. And then as soon as they get into the postseason, they lose speed. And it's a crapshoot as to which version of Chase Elliott we get. Now, today, we get the not great version of Chase Elliott, where he's struggling to run into the top 10, struggling to really finish out these races. And that's exactly what Chase Elliott brought to the table today. And that is super disappointing. It is super confusing, if I'm being blunt, but that's where we are. Am I saying he's never going to win another championship? I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I think that he definitely has a lot of potential in him still. I think he does have at least another championship or 2 in him. But the fact of the matter is that he's the guy that can't finish out these races at this point, and that is super, super confusing, and it's super interesting that that's where he is. Now, maybe, just maybe, how do I put this nicely? Maybe, just maybe, he's a guy who's not understanding these cars, and him and Allen truly need to work on their communication moving forward. I don't necessarily know if it's that bad, but it doesn't feel great, what this team has going for them right now. And it's just very weird. It's very bizarre, to say the least. So I simply put, I don't know. I don't know what this team has. I don't know if they will ever be able to bring something back to the table. We're ultimately going to have to wait and see, because that's where this team, that's where this organization is. And I do think that they can rebuild a little bit. It's Hendrick Motorsports, for crying out loud, so you know that they're going to bring a piece to the table at some point. But you look at the footage of him right there. Was this a racing incident, him and Ross? I consider it to be. Chase had already turned down onto Ross when Ross was underneath him, and happened so fast, honestly. I don't blame Ross. I know the popular theory is, ooh, he got Chastain, but I don't necessarily buy that, as my dog just had to be in the show today. This is live, folks. She's been at my leg for the last, well, what have we been on for 15 minutes? So the last 10 minutes, she's been meh at my leg. So finally, here you go, Bats. Are you freaking happy? Are you happy, Bats? Hard hit for the 48 here, Alex Bowman. This is not what we wanted to see, obviously, from this organization. But it did set up this pit stop, which ultimately brought some very fascinating aspects to this race. And you look at problems for the 20 here on this pit stop, that essentially killed his chances. But he did have that issue earlier in the race where I don't even know what happened, because for a lap, they thought he was done. They thought the engine was cooked, and then he cycled it over and got it going. Live chat here from Alex Lambert. They were the fastest team all summer long. They had the fastest car today until they got wrecked. I'm sure they're still going to be good in the future. I don't think it was Chastain's fault. I do agree with you that it was not Chastain's fault. I 100% disagree with you, Alex, that Chase Elliott in the 9 car had the winning car. He did not have the winning car. He did not have the fast car. The only thing that made him stand out was the fact that he had put on fresher tires, and he was clicking off lap times that were like a second and change faster than everybody else because of the new tires, because there was fall off. Kudos to Goodyear, sincerely, for bringing out a really good tire that legitimately fell off and made this race very interesting. But no, I disagree that Elliott had the winning car. He was the 4th place car. I knew he wasn't going to win the championship coming into today because he was that inconsistent, but I didn't think he was going to like wreck out and you know, finish multiple laps down. I thought 15th, 20th at worst, but he proved me wrong. So way to go, Chase. I felt bad for him, man. And here it is, the pass for the win and the championship. The 14, very strong for Briscoe, but that 22 was just so much faster. And a lot of people were saying, well, where was this Joey Logano for the last 2 weeks? Well, as soon as he won Vegas, they went, screw those other races. Let's focus on this race. Let's run sim on this race. And that's what they did. So for the last 2 weeks and change, Joey Logano, Penske, and everybody at that camp decided, yeah, we're going to go run sims for Phoenix. And then as soon as that's good, we'll head out to Phoenix with a dominant car. And that's what they did. They unloaded fast. They were so in practice. Top of the charts in qualifying, which is where you needed to be good for that number 1 pit selection. And sure enough, it leads to Joey Logano right there grabbing his 2nd championship. Both coming in even years, which is a little strange, admittingly, but I mean, this guy started out the season with the win at the LA Coliseum, the LA Clash, and I saw that, and he was incredibly distracted after that race because his wife was about to give birth to their child. So because of that, he was kind of all over the place. But Logano ultimately showed very early on that he adapted to this new car and that he did deserve to be in the championship conversation. Did he have a championship year? I don't think so. I really don't. I'm not trying to be mad. I said it in my championship predictions earlier this week when that video of Shifting Gears came out, that ultimately the 22, that Joey Logano did not have consistency all year long. Chase Elliott had consistency all year long, and a lot of these guys were struggling, hit or miss, especially the Penske guys. They were kind of really hit or miss. They would either dominate like they did today, or they'd be like sub 25th, sub 30th. It was very odd. So I actually do think that he had a very inconsistent year, but you look at what a champion does, you need to be consistent, semi-consistent all throughout the year. And oh, by the way, you have to be good in this one race. I'm old school. I'd love to see some hybrid of the old points standings where consistency reigns king and where top 10s and top 5s are what wins championships all season long, but we still get these Game 7 moments. I just think NASCAR has forced this playoff scenario, this situation, into a box where every race is a game 7, and that takes away the specialness of it. And there's Chase Elliott getting dumped again. Sorry, Elliott fans, I'm going to continue to replay that over and over and over again. Apparently, sorry, not sorry, but honestly, I'm still dumbfounded by what we saw. Ross Chastain, he finishes second in the championship. I believe he finished third in the race, if I'm not mistaken. No, he finished fourth in the race itself. 1.3 seconds off the pace. So, honestly, I think Ross just was battling track position all day. And so was everybody else, really. This was Logano's race to lose from the start because Logano started on pole. He was up near the front. He was challenging every single one of these lap cars, and the other championship contenders had to come through the field old school, and a lot of them just couldn't get it done. And that is just, it's disappointing because in the truck, in the Xfinity race, we had all 4 championship drivers within the top 5 in the closing laps, and we didn't really get that. It was Logano essentially the entire time. Do you see what I deal with on a constant basis? If I'm not petting her to her satisfactory, this is what happens. Y'all are going to find out one day I died from suffocation, and this is why. I want it to be clear. It was never my wife. It was my dog. Because she is just, you're needy. You're needy. I'm doing a show here, and you're being needy. Can you just not? Thank you. She's got a bed right there off camera with all the chew toys and snacks, and she chooses my lap while we're live over all that. I thank you, doggo. But honestly, let's talk about the Xfinity Series real quick and everything that happened in the Xfinity race. You can check out some of the highlights right here. But ultimately, great race. I truly think that the Xfinity Series has the best racing in all of NASCAR right now. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. But you look at some of the racing that we saw on Saturday out at Phoenix, and phenomenal. That's the only word I can think about it. And going into the race, honestly, it was very fascinating. You had 3 Chevys, all from JR Motorsports, and you had Ty Gibbs. And it is no secret. People hate Ty Gibbs, especially after the Martinsville stunt he pulled last week, where he wrecks his teammate and dumps his teammate, and then, gets out of the car, does the burnouts, acts, eggs people on, goes, come on, yes, I love this, and was really playing it up. It rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, myself included, because that's not being a good sportsman. That's not being mature. That's not having good situational awareness. He didn't need that victory, but he went out and got it anyway. And honestly, kudos to him, because you never know when your last win's going to come. But at the same time, you just dumped a teammate who needed that victory in order to make the postseason. And oh, by the way, he's on the way out. He's going to be racing for the team that has the other 3 guys in the championship with you. Are you an idiot? How stupid can you be? At least that was my thought process then, and it still is now. Honestly, I don't think the kid is mature at all. I think he's fake. I don't think he's a real Christian. I know, I'm going to say it. I don't think he is, because if you're a real Christian, you're not going to get out of... First off, you're not going to get into fights on the racetrack. Second off, you're not going to get out of the car and fight with other drivers physically. And you're not going to wreck your teammate and then get out and compare yourself to Jesus. You should never compare yourself to Jesus. Even if you think 110% you're in the right, heck, even if you are in the right, don't ever compare yourself to Jesus, especially when you're 20 years old and universally hated. This moment during the Xfinity race, that moment, was incredible, by the way. We had Noah Gragson in the 9, who's moving up to the Cup Series next year for Petty Johnson GMS, whatever they end up calling that team. And honestly, I think he's going to do good things in that 42 car. It's going to take him a half season to get up there and do some good stuff and run in the top 5 consistently. But I do think that team's going to be pretty darn fast. But, yesterday, man, I mean, this 54 just was dominant, man. And it's Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity program. You knew that they were going to be the team to beat. The 19, I don't think he would have been in contention. He certainly wasn't going to go out there and legitimately race for a championship after this incident, after the incident in Martinsville, I should say. But at the same time, I mean, you look at them, they're all up there. The 19 was up there. Yeah, sure. But I mean, nobody could touch that 54. And to his credit, man, even though I hate to do it, I got to give him credit because he raced his competitors clean. He could have easily roughed fenders, gotten into it, and blamed it on the pressure of the championship. But instead, he raced yesterday. Ty Gibbs raced the most competitive, well-balanced race he's ever run in the Cup Series, period, or in the Xfinity Series, period. That was a very, very, very mature race. I absolutely love what he did out there. And just talking about the emotions, because last night he wins his first Xfinity championship, his first NASCAR championship in a very short amount of time. In my mind, he already earned the 18 Cup car. And then, you know, we heard rumblings in the garage this morning that Ty Gibbs wasn't going to be in the Cup car today because of a family emergency. And there were jokes. There were a lot of jokes. My initial thought was, oh no, I hope his family's okay. And I really hope they're not using a family emergency to hide the fact that this kid had some beers last night and partied too hard and just doesn't feel like racing the Cup car today. That's where my mind went. I didn't tweet anything out to that effect or do anything, but that's where my mind went. And sure enough, during pre-race, we got the tweet from Joe Gibbs Racing announcing that Coy Gibbs passed away last night at the age of 59. He would have been 50 next month on his birthday. And for Joe Gibbs Racing, for Ty Gibbs, the emotions of winning an Xfinity championship literally a few hours ago to losing your co-owner, in Ty's case, your father, and a very strong pillar of Joe Gibbs Racing is devastating. My heart is I seriously was tearing up and choking up for Joe Gibbs. I've made it no secret. I've questioned pretty much everything Gibbs has done, Joe Gibbs has done professionally over the course of the last few years in how he's handled his grandson on the racetrack. But you have to respect Coach Gibbs, and you have to respect what he's done not only in the world of football, but in the world of NASCAR. And my gosh, I mean, Joe Gibbs has now lost both of his children. I mean, what can you say about that? What can you do about that? Nothing. It's gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching, and my goodness, I seriously don't know how Coach Gibbs is going to move on from this, because it's tough to lose one of your children, but to lose both of your children like that is just, it's devastating. And now, you know, you have Ty Gibbs in the exact same position of having to deal with the loss of a parent at a very early age. And if I'm being blunt, I think that this is going to affect him deeply. As somebody who went through a personal loss almost a year ago, I'm still dealing with it. And now that the 1-year anniversary of my grandfather's death is fast approaching, I'm gonna not be dealing with it so well later this year, particularly right after Christmas, because my grandfather died a few days after Christmas. So, you know, it's something that my whole family is dealing with this holiday season. We're not looking forward to the holidays this year because of it, but I know that you know, Ty and the entire Gibbs family is sincerely broken right now. And I am sincerely going to say a prayer for them tonight, y'all, and I hope you do the same, because my gosh, I mean, just the highs and lows of winning a championship and then a few hours later your father's dead. How do you go from those this should have been the best moment of my life moments to, oh my goodness, my entire world has been shattered in hours, in a mere few hours. I sincerely pray for the Gibbs family and for everybody at Joe Gibbs Racing, because, I mean, you saw it on the NBC broadcast. I tweeted it out when it was happening. NBC did a phenomenal job of reporting this, because it's one thing to report a death of somebody, respectfully. That is hard enough. But it's made even harder when you have fellow racers and people who have raced for the Gibbs family and know the Gibbs family very deeply. I knew Coy Gibbs. He was somebody that I had talked to probably a dozen times throughout the years. Phenomenal human being. When I dealt with him, he's very nice, very cordial, very professional, very joking, but a serious individual at the same time. And I'm going to miss his presence in the garage area, y'all, sincerely. Him and I weren't best friends. We didn't have phone numbers or anything like that, but just from a professional standpoint, it's a loss. It's a massive loss for Joe Gibbs Racing and for the NASCAR community. And less than 20 minutes after it was announced that he had passed, we went racing. That's just how this sport is. You have to keep going. And for Ty Gibbs to go from the high and low of this is just insane to me. And I do think Noah Gragson should have won that championship, but NASCAR created this format. Here's the last lap. You could see how close that 9 car was to him. He sent it on in there, but just couldn't get it done, and comes up a couple car lengths short of his first championship in a year where he won 10 races, and in many people's mind, mine included, he should have won the championship. Yes, Ty Gibbs is a deserving champion. It's going to be a lot of weight on Gibbs's shoulders, Ty Gibbs's shoulders now as he takes over the 18 car next year, which has yet to be announced, but it will sometime in the near future here. As we move on to the truck series a little bit here. First off, this race should have been at night. It shouldn't be. I hate that it's this late. This is the one bad thing about it being on the West Coast. And as a guy from Los Angeles, I'm annoyed by that too, y'all. I know the East Coast crowd has it far worse than I do, because the race ended a little after midnight Saturday morning. So yowza. But I used to love the truck race. I remember in the 2000s, we had some phenomenal truck racing, y'all, from this car and from the setup that we had with the car. But then the aero package changed dramatically, and the trucks became so dependent on other trucks around them. And then ARCA drivers with money got into the truck series and turned the truck series essentially into what the ARCA series was, and is now, I should say, and that's just a wreck fest with, a bunch of knuckleheads from 15th on back that really don't race with respect, and you hate to see that, you really do. But it was Zane Smith who finished second the last couple of years, third time's the charm, got the job done, and honestly, I think this might have been my favorite championship race of this whole weekend out at Phoenix, because you had all 4 of them consistently running in the top 5, top 10, and even when they weren't, there was still incredible racing happening. Yes, the stages created for some interesting drama, but ultimately it came down to who had a good restart and who was able to get around other cars right there on the restart. You look at some of these restarts, absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And then, I mean, look at that. Look at how close they're getting to the inside wall. I absolutely love it. And, I mean, I absolutely love this new version of Phoenix. Is it a little ridiculous? Absolutely. Does it matter? No. Because there's some phenomenal racing. I'd wish they'd get rid of the yellow line altogether, because at Phoenix at least, because it makes no sense to have it there. These guys go wherever they can on this racetrack, and I mean, you look at them fan out and just come on down to the bottom of the racetrack. Absolutely glorious scenes out at Phoenix, and I think that Zane is a very deserving champion. He's going to be in that number 38 truck next season, and I think he's going to be hard pressed to be beaten. He started the season with a win at Daytona in this truck, and honestly, he's been pretty consistent. He's been running in the top 10. They've had their highs, they've had their lows, but they turned up the wick when they needed to, and that is in this final race. It doesn't matter what you do all season. It really doesn't. It matters how good your car is here in this race. And yeah, part of me still wishes that consistency reigns supreme, but that is where we are in 2022, 2023. Hearing that potentially we could get a playoff change-up sometime. Probably not next season. We're probably looking at 2024 when the new TV rights and when the new owners situation with the charters come out, is when we could see a new championship format. No idea what that is. NASCAR has just indicated, at least what I'm hearing from my sources within NASCAR, is that they are talking internally about how they can change the playoffs to make things more exciting, but also to create that energy and to create that atmosphere that they are looking for. And what does that look like? I don't know. You can leave it in the comments. I want to hear what you guys have to say. What did you guys think of the Xfinity and the truck race and the race today? I know the race today wasn't exactly what we had hoped it would be, but you know, I'm hoping that first off, it doesn't look like our media center you know, information is going to be coming up, so that's stinko. But honestly, I'm trying to think of what I'm going to take away from this weekend personally. Honestly, I'm going to think about everything that happened in this Cup race. I'm going to think about the great battles we saw in Xfinity and in truck for the championship, but how ultimately, when we got to the actual race, the Cup race, it was pretty boring. And I wouldn't say boring. I would say it was more focused on, you know, what old school, quote unquote, old school racing is, where you have cars who have to consistently run their own race and play the best strategy. And that's what we saw in the first two stages. And that's who raced the best strategy. In everybody but Logano's case, it was, I have to come through the field and I have to make up the ground that I messed up in practice and in qualifying, not qualifying well. And stage 2 had a little bit of that as well. And then once stage 3 started, it was like, okay, gloves are off, let's go. And they went. And some of them went, some of them didn't. It was a little inky, you know. It was what it was ultimately. I hate that we didn't have, you know, these guys side by side, because in my head we were going to see Christopher Bell and Ross Chastain battle it out side by side. And I think had things worked out for them a little bit better, had the 20 car not had the issues on pit road, had Chastain frankly qualified better and run better and had a little bit more speed from the get-go, he could have been in the top 5 and not had to come through the field as many times as he did. And ultimately, Elliott was lacking the speed. He was clearly the slowest out of all 4 cars. He clearly was the guy that was going the other direction. He was in the top 5 for the first stage, fell just inside the top 10 for stage 2, and fell out of the top 10 at stage 3 when we saw the spin incident. It ultimately wasn't good for Elliott. And you could see the closing laps here of the truck race. Yeah, that is the 66 going around, and that's the end of their championship hopes. You feel for it, man. That's very, very, very tough. But ultimately, you know, you look at this move right here, just a bad move, because he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have put himself in that position. But that's the closing laps racing for a championship. All of these guys were 1, 2, 3, 4, and you could see the 66 getting under our eventual champ right here, trying to make it work, and it doesn't. And kudos to the 18 right there for going underneath him. But that ends their championship hopes right there. And admittingly, those Toyotas just were not as fast. And I'd like to point out, in the Truck Series, Toyota had a really good chance of winning this Truck Series championship, and the one Ford in the championship Ford beat all the other Toyotas. I mean, I think that they're going to take that to the bank. I feel bad for him, because that's just bad, man. That's just bad. And even today, Chevy had 2 cars in the Final 4, and they couldn't get it done. I mean, Chevy had 3 in the Xfinity race, and Toyota got it done there. So, I mean, you did have, you know, these guys really, you know, put on a good show. I mean, look at this restart here. You got your championship for boom, 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 right there, 1, 2, 3. And they're going for it, man, with a couple laps to go. And you look at this amazing restart by this Truck Series, these Truck Series drivers right here. This was some phenomenal racing. They were driving each other clean and aggressive. This is what racing's all about. And I hate that it comes down to one race, but you got to admit, when it comes down to a race like that, this is pretty great. I mean, just look at this final lap here. I mean, you got 3 of the 4 right there, 1, 2, 3, 4. And oh, by the way, they're side by side for second. They file out by the back straightaway. Zane Smith coming down through the back straightaway. He's got the 99 right there He bumps him, but he can't get to him. He gets in the wall, and Zane Smith is your 2022 champ. And as he said, I effing wanted this more than anybody on Fox. I truly wish that Fox would actually send their broadcast team to the racetrack, because I can call a better race from my living room than those guys call from their studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. Seriously. Yeah, I'm calling you guys out. Oh no, what's the Truck Series guys going to come after me? Ooh. But phenomenal race for them. But back to the Cup Series and some of these highlights from this Cup race. Phenomenal. Honestly, it was great. I actually loved that final stage. It wasn't the most exciting. Yes, we could have had them all up there. If I had to rate this Cup race, I think I'd give it like a B+, B-, somewhere around there. The truck race, in my mind, A+. The Xfinity race, A-. This was definitely a B-, C+ kind of race. You know, the Uber racing nerd I am, loved the first two stages, but it just dried out and got very boring after that. But Joey Logano is your 2022 NASCAR champ. Leave it in the comments. What did y'all think about this one? Very curious as to what you have to say. We'll probably end up getting over here on Twitter to get some of the tweets and the Twitter comments coming at us, because there was some honestly good racing. I enjoyed it a little bit right there, and I know that it's not necessarily going to be the popular opinion. We're going to get a lot of, well, that wasn't that great, but it was. I mean, you truly got to hand it to Logano, because he ultimately got it done. And that's all that you can really ask, is for these guys to put on a good championship run, because, you know, it definitely changes. And Joey Logano with his wife right there, and one of his children, a couple of the other ones are at home because they're a little too young. But, I mean, for Joey to have his family there, it means a lot. And to see, you know, him get his second championship is pretty cool. A lot of people don't like Joey Logano, but you got to admit, he is that guy who will get it done and knows how to get it done. Yeah, he was the oldest guy in the field at 32. He's a year younger than me. How do you think I feel about that, being called old when you're in your 30s? But, you know, Logano realistically has at least another 10 years in him, I think. And I don't see him leaving Penske. So the questions start piling in, and I know media members are going to start this conversation. Does Joey Logano have more championships in him? How many more? Honestly, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, I think he can get four or five championships, depending on what the rest of the field does, depending on how good other teams are, and how Team Penske keeps up with their cars and with their programs. But I do think that Joey Logano is going to be a threat for championships for years to come, especially with that number 22 Team Penske team. They're pretty good. I think that they've got a good amount of backing from Ford. Supposedly, with this new rear end, we're going to see very, very little change as far as on track and how the cars handle. But again, that could change. We don't know what the future holds, really. It's all kind of a crapshoot. You know, Blaney's pissed in his interview. That from 22 Fan Forever. Yes, he is pissed, but that's Blaney. He really wanted this one. Black Flags Matter. Most mid-championship for in the playoff area. I actually do agree with you. These guys didn't really stand out, but then you really look at the championship for field. You have Chase Elliott, NASCAR's most popular driver from Hendrick Motorsports, one of NASCAR's best teams, the most successful team in NASCAR history, hands down. You have Joey Logano from Team Penske, the older statesman. Team Penske, one of the bigger race teams that doesn't have as much on-track success as Hendrick, but as far as worth, is almost as valuable as Hendrick Motorsports, minus the victories. You had Christopher Bell, who's the Joe Gibbs Racing / Team Toyota banner, carrying that whole organization and manufacturer into the postseason. Good for them. And then you had kind of the black sheep of the Final Four, and that's Ross Chastain, who hands down was the fan favorite going into this race. Hands down was one of the most compelling, interesting stories. 7th generation watermelon farmer who was going to be racing in the Xfinity series a couple of years ago when the sponsor turned out to be a giant scam and they were raided by the FBI. That deal fell apart, so Chastain bounced around to basically backfielder, backmarker teams and clawed and inched his way into the Cup Series, which is where he would have been a couple seasons ago had it not been for that sponsorship issue. And sure enough, he signs with Trackhouse, co-owned by Pitbull, who wants to be a global brand, not just a NASCAR team, but a global brand that disrupts the norm, that changes things up. And you got to admit, that is Ross Chastain to a T. This guy definitely is willing to go against the grain. As the Door Bumper Clear podcast coined, which has become the popular opinion on social media, Ross Chastain's don't give a F tour. And that's exactly what Ross Chastain does. And that's what he did all season long. And a lot of people said that this move from Chastain was the I don't give an F tour stopping by for engine number 9. And I don't think so. I think that this was a racing incident. You look here, Ross was already on the bottom. That's a bad angle, but that's what Chase Elliott saw. But let's wait here a second because this is what Ross saw. And I mean, look at this. Going, already making the move down here. And Elliott moves down with him, and Ross has to hold his ground because there's a wall on that inside. So I think it was just Chase not being aware that the one car was there. And by the time the spotter was yelling at him, it was too late for Chase. And Chase just, frankly, was slower. Ross got going better. Ross was better on that restart. And I hate it for Chase Elliott, but you got to admit, that guy wasn't going to win the championship today. He wasn't. I'm sorry. I'm not, meaning to put fire on the guy, but he just wasn't good all day. There's no way you can convince me otherwise. And I think Chase knew that. I really did. Because he definitely expressed a little bit of that in his post-race a little bit. But I mean, just you just look at what this guy does. He finished 28th out here. It's his 3rd straight championship 4 appearance, but he won the first time. And the other 2 times that he was in, he didn't show up. So the last 2 times he's been in the championship for the last 2 years running, first year he loses to his teammate. Second year he loses to a guy who was frankly a lot better. Brittany in the chat. Problem, I think, is Ross started to move before the start-finish line. I think that's why Chase didn't see him being down there. I think Chase wasn't paying attention. He was driving out of his front bumper, not paying attention to Ross on his rear, and Chase didn't get going. Ross timed it better. Plain and simple. And Chase just didn't get going. And because of that, guess what? Chase goes around. And it definitely put the nail in the coffin on his championship year. He was able to continue on, but he finished 28th and just didn't have the speed after that. And arguably, he didn't have the speed all day long. I mean, that guy was just barely, keyword, barely hanging on to the top 10 throughout most of the race. I hate it for him because he definitely limped into this one, and you hate it. You really do. You don't want to see this, but it's exactly what we saw. And just to say it's disappointing is an understatement. I'm just honestly baffled by it. Brittany again in the chat. Chase and Ross both said it was Byron who stacked them up on the inside line. Yeah, there was a little bit of a stack up, and when you have these guys stack up like that, there's nothing you can do. Chase was going for the same piece of real estate that Ross was already in, and honestly, by the time Chase got there, it was already too late. Had Chase gone as fast as Ross, he wouldn't have gone around. Ross essentially would have just bumped him all the way or rubbed him all the way through that front straightaway, but Chase was slower, period. It's a racing incident. I know a lot of people want to say, oh, we got Chastained. And I believe that this is, look at this restart. And Byron is pretty much up against the 12, but didn't get going here. Watch this. He doesn't get going. Oh, he just doesn't get going at all. Yeah, I do agree with you, Brittany, and with Chase and Ross. The 24 just stacked up, and that led to the 24 going around. So, way to go, teammate, basically, is what we're saying there. Which happens, man. I mean, it sucks, but it is what it is. You got to be good all year long. And honestly, these guys really, really did, and they didn't do a good job of it. And Blaney was pissed after this race, by the way. He was like, I was going to win this race, meh. But honestly, Blaney didn't have the car. Like, he had it at spurts. I think he had the long-run car over his teammate, but clearly the 22 brought the car. They brought the car to beat. And I just hate it because this guy should have had a decent car, but he didn't. And I think he's more pissed off that he lost to his teammate than anything. Brittany in the chat again. I just think all four should be able to be up there at the end. I agree! All race, it wasn't Champ 4, and it definitely was a different culture of others racing playoff drivers differently. I agree. But then, if I'm not a playoff driver, and this is what NASCAR said when they first implemented the chase back in the mid-2000s, they didn't want to do it this way. They didn't want to have playoff drivers be treated differently than regular drivers. And I don't think they should either. Just because you're racing for a championship doesn't mean I'm going to race you any different. It means I'm going to race you harder because I want to prove to everybody that I deserve to race with you. I deserve to race for a championship. And that's what these guys did, and that's what they should do. They shouldn't roll over for him, because how much would that suck if everybody in the cut field said, you know what? We're going to let these championship four go ahead and get on up to the front. We're going to let them race themselves. We're going to stay back here and Joey winning first race was definitely what allowed him to have such a superior car. Yes, I talked about it earlier, Brittany in the chat again, because Joey won Vegas and because he had essentially 2 weeks and change to prepare for this race. They only focused on sim work for Phoenix for this race. They didn't work on anything else. They just worked on this. And honestly, good for them, because that's what they need. That's what you needed to do. You needed to go in there and actually just care about the final race, because once you locked into the Final Four, it doesn't matter what you do at the other racetracks. Doesn't matter at all. Throwaway races. Doesn't matter. As Brittany, as long as you don't do something stupid and end up cleaning out a championship for contender. That's the hope. And I don't think Ross, what he did right here, was stupid. I don't think that this was, ill-intended. I don't think it was Ross's fault. I honestly just think this was a racing incident where Ross saw the stack up, went down low, Chase made the move too late, and got spun. It was a racing incident. Chase was kind of on the fence about it. Well, was that my fault? No, it wasn't your fault, Chase. It just was what it was, unfortunately. I mean, you look at it, Ross is already down there, and yeah, at one point he turns back because he doesn't want to go for a ride into that inside wall with him. I mean, look at it here. He just waits too long. He should have made that crank sooner, and it's a rule in NASCAR, but I think there needs to be a little bit of a gray area here, because once you're in that restart zone, I think it's time to go, period. The end. I don't care who pulls out soon, especially at a track like this. You should be able to fan out and get away from each other. Rolling starts are tricky, and I mean, right here, yeah, the 24 clearly stacked up. It kind of stacked up the whole field, and Elliott paid the price right there. But I mean, did any Chase Elliott fan think he was going to win the championship today? They wanted him to race the championship for a championship today and be in contention for a championship today. But let's be honest, it wasn't going to happen. Period. Brittany in the chat again. No, I don't think it was ill intent either, but I do think a quick release of the gas pedal and both continue on. Plus, Ross's next restart didn't gain any spots either, so that was the point. Yeah. I mean, if the queen had balls, she'd be the king. So, it doesn't matter all the what ifs. We could sit here and what if all day. Honestly, that terrified me. This move, I'm sitting here just hoping that Alex is okay, because he cleared every concussion protocol, but that is a hard hit. And these cars haven't seen much improvement all season. So that right there was nerve-wracking. That made me stop and go, oh boy. And I mean, you could see here just a racing incident. McDowell came up and I guess didn't know that they were 3 wide. That was 100% on McDowell for moving up and essentially dumping the 48. And that set up this round of pit stops, which ultimately had the pit issue for the 20 car of Christopher Bell, which meant that it was somebody who got his gloves stuck on the rear tire here, and it ultimately killed it. And I don't remember what Ross did on this pit stop, so let's watch these highlights for a second here. Let's see what happens with Ross here, because I honestly don't remember. Everything was happening so quick. 19.8 for Christopher Bell. That killed his championship hopes. 10.8, pretty good on Chastain. Not great, but good. And then what happened with Joey? Joey was about a 9.9, I want to say, right there, but you could see it right there. Logano came out fourth, and Chastain was just too far back. He was playing the pickup game all year long. And then another car with a random car fire. Another Ford, I should say, with this random tire fire. I mean, NASCAR still can't figure out how to get the tire to not go into this area of the Fords in particular. Supposedly this was fixed. Clearly it wasn't. Another driver inhaling smoke, dealing with another car fire. Great. Brittany, I hope Bell's pit member didn't break his finger. He was saying later with ice and being checked out. Yeah, my understanding is that he did go to the infield care center, but that he was okay. Really sore finger. It's heavily bruised, last I heard. Not sure if it's broken. We'll give you an update on that if we get it. I'm a Chase Elliott fan, and I saw second place, but not 28th. Yeah, I didn't even see a second place for Chase today, Brittany. I saw him running inside the top 15, maybe top 20, because that's who Chase Elliott has been the last 11 races or so. Ever since the postseason started, he has not shown up. He has limped along, and had it not been for the substantial lead he had from winning the regular season race, he wouldn't have even been in the championship four, let alone the top 8. So Chase just kind of got complacent, I want to say, and the fact that team couldn't figure it out is mind-boggling to me. They had a great year last year, but they couldn't figure anything out this year, sincerely. But Joey Logano doing Joey Logano things, winning his second career NASCAR Cup Series championship. I mean, he's legit in a legit crowd. Like, you look at the guys who have 2 championships active right now on the racetrack, Joey Logano and now what is now the number 8 of Kyle Busch, which is going to take some getting used to saying. They should light fireworks after every race. Haha. Jonathan Osuna. Yes, there is a video coming out on my channel this week of off-roading, little explosions and other things. You can check that out on Tuesday on the channel. But we saw ultimately a B-, and like the further away I'm getting from the race, the more I'm hating it. But yeah, like this was a B-, C+ race at best. The first 2 stages were very boring, and then it didn't really pick up until the last part right there. And as Brittany pointed out in the chat, we just ultimately had bad race. It just was bad because the championship 4 were nowhere near the top. Logano won the thing because, frankly, no one else got up there and contended. It was like, and I don't necessarily think he had the dominant car. He did, clearly. He led the most laps and won the first 2 stages and went on to win the race and started on the pole. So on paper, yeah, it was a really boring race. Yeah, it was a snooze fest. This was like an old school cup race where from the 2000s where we see like no cautions and Matt Kenseth slips in for a 7th place finish and goes on to win the championship. Like, that's kind of what it felt like to me. And it was just boring. Brittany, when they pitted early and was able to get back to 8th and then 6th, it seemed clean air, fresh tires, he got better. You're talking about Chase Elliott. Yeah, a little, but he still wasn't that great, and there he is spinning again. Hey, look at Chase spinning on command for me. Yay. Anyone in the lead was unstoppable. Yes, until you got to lap cars, because Joey Logano couldn't get around the lap cars in the first 2 stages. He was mired behind those guys. I think because everybody, this might be a surprise to you guys, Joey Logano isn't well loved in the Cup Series. He's that guy that everybody just kind of tolerates, admittingly. So because of that, oh, here comes the leader. You mean in order for me to keep my lap, I have to give this guy, which I already don't like that much, a hard time? All right. Let me do this. And they got up on the wheel and they were like, nope. You ain't good. No, Logano. Nope. Logano. Nope. nope, you ain't doing this, Logano. That's pretty much what they were doing. Tiffany in the chat, today's race was more boring than yesterday's race. I agree. I think the truck race was the best. The Xfinity race was mid-tier. And then today's race fell off a cliff. So basically the best racing that we saw for a championship this weekend happened at midnight on a Friday. Well, technically Saturday morning in the truck race. By the way, Craftsman is back as the Truck Series sponsors. So really excited about that. We're back, baby. Brittany in the chat, I definitely see more interviews where people say Joey Logano isn't respected in the garage. He's not! I interview him. And honestly, when we're not talking about racing, I've talked with Joey Logano. I've had lunch with Joey Logano, Penske members, and done a lot of cool things being a media member for the last 10 years. And I will say this. When you're not talking to Joey Logano about NASCAR, motorsports, racing, or cars, well, no, take that back. When you're talking to him about cars, he's a really cool dude. Like, he's a guy that you can hang out with all day. But as soon as he puts that helmet on and talks driving, he's a little jerk. He's like a little selfish jerk, and I don't like him that much. Like, he's fine. But then he takes the helmet off, and he's like a really good guy. He's the most two-faced driver I think I've ever met and ever interviewed. And he's a good guy, but you would never know that. And I think Race for the Championship kind of showed a little bit of that. Like, it showed his fun personality side, but you know, you got to get past everything that's happened on track to find the nice, gooey Joey Logano center, and you definitely don't want to do that. Brittany in the chat, I'm not even sure his own teammate liked him all that much. That's an understatement. I mean, you think Brad Keselowski got along with Joey Logano? You think Ryan Blaney likes him? No, absolutely not. I can't speak to Austin Cindric, but I can't imagine that they're very good friends at all. Tiffany in the chat, I can't believe this. I'm happy because Joey Logano is my favorite driver. Well, that's good for you guys. I mean, good for him. He deserved it. He ran a good race. I'm from CT, Connecticut, I believe, and I can't find myself to root for him. Yeah, Brittany, I get you on that. I really do. It's hard to be a Joey Logano fan, I think. I think it's actually harder to be a Ross Chastain fan these days than it is to be a Joey Logano fan. Like, socially within the NASCAR fandom, I think, oh, you're a Ross Chastain fan? Oh, get away from me. But if you're a Joey Logano fan, at least you're not a Ross Chastain fan. So, I mean, these two guys are definitely not well-liked in the NASCAR fandom at all. But let me know in the chat, who do you hate more? Ross Chastain or Joey Logano? Honestly, I think I hate Joey Logano more. Like, if I had to pick, but Brittany, his hometown is literally maybe 20 minutes from me. Scrum the bum 2, better Joey than a Toyota. Yeah, but I mean, look at the and you had this incident, which I think that this is going to be swept under the rug by NASCAR because you had Coy Gibbs' death and you had a championship race happening. So this NASCAR is really, 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 really hoping doesn't make the highlight reel, but clearly we're making the highlight reel. It's still here. It's still going, but I dug this. But let me know in the comments, do you guys like these post-race breakdowns of everything that happens during the race? Because I think, you know, we might continue this into 2023. Let me know. Chastain, Brittany in the chat. Chastain, I said anyone but Ross. Once Chase was out, I wanted Bell. Yeah, I did think Bell. I said it in my championship predictions earlier this week. I thought that it was going to be Christopher Bell and Ross Chastain side by side on the final lap for this championship, and we didn't get that. And I'm disappointed in that because, frankly, that would have been a hell of a race. I sincerely want to see Ross Chastain and Christopher Bell side by side on the white flag for a win at some point, because that is hold my beer, watch this kind of stuff right there. Tiffany, if Blaney did not like Joey Logano, then he would not help him. Yeah, but again, Blaney works for Team Penske. His job is to win the race. His second job is to help another Team Penske car win the race if he is not able to. And since he was not able to, guess what? He had to help him. So Blaney's doing his job reluctantly, I can guarantee you that. Brittany, yes, more of this. More of this post-race stuff, these live post-race. Okay, we'll do that. Brittany in the chat, Blaney still needs his job at Penske. Exactly. I mean, it doesn't matter. Contracts, I mean, RCR approved. Contracts are not that. If somebody wants you out of their organization, they'll get you out of that organization. A contract is great, but it's only great if it can be upheld. So it's just, But yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys want more post-race shows like this. Something we might do in 2023. It's something we toyed with in 2022, and I thought that this would have been a great opportunity for it. But damn, I wish we would have done it last week, because that was Martinsville was a better race than this, period. And Martinsville wasn't a great race until the white flag, but it was still a better race than what we saw today. Brittany, if Chastain was fourth farther back, Blaney would have definitely passed Joey without a second thought. Again, if the king didn't have balls, he'd be the queen. It's what ifs, and we could sit here and what if all day, but it ultimately doesn't change the outcome of this race. And ultimately, you got to just stop and go, yeah, that's what happened. These guys, yeah. Yes, I meant post-race breakdowns. Well, Brittany, we will probably end up doing that. I got to do one for the 2023 Daytona 500, and we're going to the LA Clash at the LA Coliseum. So I guess I got to call NASCAR and be like, hey, NASCAR, we want to do a post-race show at the LA Coliseum. Can I get a spot and internet connection, please? I'd appreciate it. But yeah, we'll figure out a way to do this at the LA Coliseum. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait for that race. We've got a lot going on here, obviously with ARN and with shifting gears and the YouTube channel. We're going to be going out to a lot more races. We wanted to go to this race, but budgetary constraints at ARN limited our travel budget to go to Phoenix, unfortunately. Phoenix hotels were expensive. We're hopefully going to be going to some F1 races, doing something like this at some F1 races. Going to the duels. No, I'm not going to be in Florida for the 500 unless NASCAR wants to hook me up with a hotel room. But no, we're not going to be going out to Daytona in the duels. But we will do a breakdown like this for the duels, I believe, after the race. Who is the worst driver? To interview? From a reporter standpoint, nowadays, Chase Elliott. I'm being serious. Nothing against Chase. Just he gives yes/no answers that are very dry, and he's always pissed off when he's talking to the media. He's always annoyed that he's doing an interview. In my mind, I'd rather talk to Kyle Busch, and Kyle Busch is super hit or miss. Like, I remember getting hassled from Tony Stewart all the time. But honestly, Chase Elliott is I don't want to interview that guy. And you have Kyle Busch, who's a distance second, admittingly. But I mean, Denny Hamlin, I love interviewing him. My favorite interview of all time, seriously, and I'm going to miss this guy, Kurt Busch. I've interviewed him the most throughout my career, at least 20, 30 times. I've put a microphone in his face, and I've talked with him off mic a bunch, and that guy truly is an amazing human being. I've always been a Kurt Busch fan because he is so incredible to work with. Incredibly friendly, incredibly professional. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Kurt Busch professional? Meh, meh. He is. I'm going to miss Kurt Busch. I really am. I hope that he works out a part-time Cup schedule in some capacity at some point next season once he is able to. I think it'd be pretty darn cool if he either jumped in the number 91 or jumped into Jimmy Johnson's car over at Petty GMS part-time. Who is the worst driver to race? Joey Logano. He's super aggressive. He won't Ross Chastain you purposefully, but he's not going to give you the room. Brittany, I'm so sad he had to retire, not on his terms. I agree. That was just tragic, man. And you look at Kurt, he took a lot of hard hits. That was at least his 7th or 8th really hard hit that he took in this next-gen car out at Pocono that finally ended his career. So I hate it. Brittany in the chat, the Coliseum was cool, but not much of a race. So narrow, so slow, but a hell of an exhibition and entertainment. I agree and disagree, Brittany. Yes, it was very slow and narrow, but I mean, I'm the track announcer at Orange Show Speedway in San Bernardino, California. OrangeShowSpeedway.org, by the way. Our final race is actually a few days away of the 2022 season. And that track is exactly like the Coliseum is. Exactly the same. Built in an old football stadium, super flat, just super flat, a short track, quarter mile. So the jokes at our track were, oh, NASCAR didn't want to come to San Bernardino. But honestly, I love what they did because NASCAR's new mentality is I'm not going to build a racetrack in Fontana, California, which is 40 miles from downtown Los Angeles, but instead I'm going to bring the NASCAR race to downtown LA where 8 million, 9 million people live in Los Angeles City alone. Boom, put the race right there in the middle of the people. We're doing it with Chicago this coming July. Same mentality, put the race where the people are. I absolutely love it. NASCAR needs to be doing this because to get people to drive 40 miles one way is ridiculous. We did it with Chicago, with the Chicagoland Speedway. That track died. That track attendance died. So because of that, we're going to the street course. You get that with Nashville, because Nashville Super Speedway is so far away from the actual city, but the Nashville Fairgrounds are right there. So that track is going to be worked on for hopefully a Cup date in the near future. Looking forward to that one. But I don't know. I want them to try to race at the Fairgrounds, Brittany. MTJ should have won this race. How? Where did MTJ finish? Michael McDowell, I think, had a better car than MTJ. Seriously. Like, it would have been cool. It would have been great. Yes. But come on. No. MTJ did not have a good car. That's just, no. But yeah, I agree with Brittany. I think it'd be great if we actually raced at the Fairgrounds. I think it'd be really cool. And I do think it's going to happen. I think it's just a question of who's going to pay for it and when it's going to actually happen. So couple of years, mark my words, it'll be there. It's just a matter of, like I said, who's going to pay for it. But there is your 2022 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Joey Logano, two-time champ, picks up another championship for Roger Penske. He picks up a championship for his crew chief, Paul Wolfe. Yes, but he got in a crash. Case in point. So very cool moment. Make sure that you guys mash that subscribe button if you haven't already. I've been streaming for about an hour talking about this race. Thank you guys so much for coming on in. But we're still getting comments. So, okay, well, hang on. SRX showed that fans will show up to the Fairgrounds. People will show up to that Fairgrounds track will sell out if NASCAR actually holds a Cup race there. It's just a handful of local idiots who got really surprised when it turns out that when you move next door to a racetrack that there's race cars on the track. Ooh, they are ruining it for everybody. But honestly, the Fairgrounds do need some work. They do need a lot more stands around that place to really pack it in and make it financially feasible for Cup Series, for the NASCAR Cup Series to race there. But I do think it's going to happen. Byron Von Weebs, I don't see it happening at the Fairgrounds. It's owned by the city. No one would want to put $80 million into somebody else's property unless NASCAR buys it. Could happen. Tiffany, I think Briscoe had a good race. He absolutely did. Brittany, racetracks are loud? I had no idea. What? Is that what happens at racetracks? I wonder why the property at near racetracks are so low. Let me think about this one. Maybe it's because nobody wants to live near a racetrack that's loud. Personally, I wouldn't mind living near a racetrack. In fact, I did live near a racetrack for a few years, actually. I lived a few blocks away from what is soon to be In-N-Out Dragway of Pomona. And I loved it. Of course, twice a year for an entire weekend, you'd just be chilling at your house, and then all of a sudden you would hear... It was actually kind of cool. I didn't really enjoy the Saturday morning 7 a.m. runs. Those were not so much fun, but overall, I loved it. Like, I loved living near a racetrack, and I miss it a little bit. I'm not too far from Pomona now, so that's fine. But yeah, I missed it. I wouldn't mind it either. It's not like they run races at 2 a.m. Exactly. Like, as I said earlier, some of you guys know, I'm the track announcer / PR director, media relations director over at Orange Show Speedway in San Bernardino, California. It's a quarter-mile flat short track that has been there for 75 years, been running consecutively for 75 years. Our 2022 season finale is coming up this Saturday night. We're actually really looking forward to it, but our cap is midnight, and that is self-imposed. We do not have an ordinance from the city saying, oh, you have to shut cars off by this time. We have self-imposed midnight, and normally we like getting out of there as soon as possible. If we can end our racing at 9 p.m., we will, if we're done. But normally we do. Somewhere between 9 and 10 p.m. is where we end our races for the most part. So honestly, I'm like, that's not too hard to do. Tiffany in the chat, I hate Ty Gibbs because he compared himself to Jesus. Very, very, very fair point. No real Christian, I'll say that 5,000 more times, no real Christian would ever, under any circumstances, compare themselves to Jesus. That is literally the definition of somebody who's trying to use religion to get away with horrible things. You see politicians doing it all the time, justifying, the vicious things that they're doing, coming after groups of Americans. And Ty Gibbs did it to try to get away from the fact that he wrecked his own teammate, prevented a Joe Gibbs racing car from racing for a championship because he was being a selfish idiot. I mean, he's still a kid. He's still 20 years old. Give him 5 years at least to mature just a little bit. Is he ready for the Cup Series? Driving talent-wise, yes. Maturity level-wise, hell no. But it's still going to happen. Brittany, those boos Ty got were loud yesterday. Yes, they were. I mean, you know what his initials stand for, right? Ty Gibbs. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, Grandpa. And it doesn't take away. Oh, my dog got excited. Come here. Say hi to the people. Yes, this is Bats. She got excited because she heard me making noises. Yes, Mama, yes. Okay, my dog's excited. I should not be in the 18 next year. I agree, but look at it from Joe Gibbs Racing standpoint. Why the mouth every time? Why you do this to me while I'm live? I hate it. I hate it so. She hates me. Yeah, but look at it from Joe Gibbs Racing standpoint. That is the first car you ever owned in the Cup Series. That is your car, the 18. That is your number. You picked that number 30 years ago now. Oh, I'm old. I remember when that team was new. But he picked that number 30 years ago, and to put his grandson in it would be huge for the Gibbs family. It really would. But at the same time, you look at Kyle Busch, very expensive. Ty Gibbs, not expensive at all to race in that Cup Series in the 18. Brittany in the chat, that's Ty's problem. He knows he gets a Cup seat no matter what. He can get away with bad behavior on the track. Yes, but you got to admit, NASCAR needs a bad boy. Kyle Busch was the bad boy for the longest time, and he doesn't want that moniker. He really doesn't. He wants to be loved. He wants to be liked, and he prefers it that way. And I think Ty truly doesn't give an F. Like, he doesn't care if he's the bad guy. He's got enough money to protect himself. His granddad's always going to give him a ride in the 18 car, so he'll have that ride for his entire career, literally. Unless we see a, Teresa Dale Jr. type situation where he really gets pissed off at his grandfather. But, I don't think that's ever going to happen because his grandfather stuck with him throughout thick and thin as much as he did now. What else could Ty Gibbs do that pisses off Granddad that he hasn't done already? I can't think of anything. So let him have it. Let him be the bad guy. I hope Monster's a sponsor so he can have the black car with very little sponsor stickerage on there and just be the bad guy. Chastain is the new bad guy. I disagree. I mean, you look at... I truly think that his move at Martinsville launched him into superstardom, and legitimately, Chastain could dethrone Chase Elliott as NASCAR's most popular driver this year. Will it happen? I don't know. Possibly, but I doubt it. But Chastain definitely has a better shot than any other driver has had for the last few years running. So I don't know. That one's going to be very interesting to see. But I don't know. I really don't. But Bats wants to go for a walkie walk, and you want your dinner? Do you want your din-din? You have to get into the face of the people. Say hi to the people. She doesn't care. She's very whatever about it. But the 2022 NASCAR season has come to an end, and honestly, I'm exhausted. Like, it's been an exhausting year because normally there's always a handful of storylines and things that happen in the Cup Series and in the NASCAR world. And this year, for whatever reason, felt like it was 10 seasons long. And I know they all feel like that at the end of the year. And come next Sunday, my anniversary, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be, looking at my watch, looking at my phone going, there's no Cup race today. How do I exist? And I have a cheat because I'm going to be at the racetrack next weekend doing a race. So I have one more championship race, even though we have like 6 championship races and a demolition derby and 9 months felt like 12 months. Brittany in the chat. Yeah, I 100% agree. And your chats pop up right above me a few seconds after. So very cool. Thank you guys for coming out for the chat tonight. We are planning on doing more of these post-Cup race on Sunday night broadcasts. I don't know if it's going to necessarily be a weekly thing. I think my wife really likes me not working on the weekends, but I really enjoyed this. So let me know in the comments down below if you guys want to see more of this moving forward. Make sure that you mash that subscribe button. And if you want to help support the channel for free, you can go ahead and mash the subscribe button, hit that like button, and share this on your social media accounts. It helps us out so much. It really, truly does, and we really appreciate the support here on the channel. Overall, 2020, I'm going to put a video out later this year around the holidays, but 2022 for me personally was a big year because it was the year that we hit 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, and then we hit 2,000 a few months later, and then we hit 3,000 a few months after that, and it's just honestly going to continue to get better and better and better. Don't turn into Brady. We totally get it. Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate that. But honestly, 2022 was a big year growing wise for us. And my wife and I live in California, and a lot of you followed me through everything that happened in 2020, 2021 with my wife, where she was diagnosed with a failing liver and a failing, kidney substantially because of the liver. So during COVID, the lockdown, we were waiting for a liver for her, had to go to Arizona for 10 months. 2 weeks after her surgery, she gets, septic, and she almost died. She went into a coma for about a week, where we legitimately didn't know if she was going to wake up. And that was really tough, really, really, really tough. And all throughout the whole thing, I was here on the channel, streaming, broadcasting, doing things to keep my mind busy, to keep myself busy, because during that time, the Los Angeles Angels called me and said, if you're not in the studio on Monday morning, you're fired. We don't care if your wife is dying in another state and you need to be there legally. We don't care. You're fired. And they fired me. That's why I'm no longer an Angel fan, because after 10 years, they waited for my wife to get sick before they fired me. And this all started around the time that I got married to my wife, and it was known in my office then that I was Hispanic. And as soon as they found out I was Hispanic, they started treating me different. And that's the Los Angeles Angels for you. They're pretty awful people. They don't like you if you're not white over there, and that's disappointing because everyone in the office is Caucasian, and even though I look Caucasian, once they found out I was Hispanic, they fired me, and I hate that. And I got through all that because of this channel, and my wife and I accumulated significant medical debt during that time. I won't say the number here because frankly it depresses me too much, but because of the success of the YouTube channel, we started whittling away at that to the point where we can actually, start to see a positive step in that direction of paying off those medical bills, because even with the best insurance, we still owe a crazy amount of money for her new liver, for her new kidney, and for the medication that we pay for every week to make sure that she continues to stay alive. So thank you guys for helping to support the channel and her, because I can literally say that you guys are the reason that I'm still alive and that my wife is still alive. So for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been a pretty rough couple of years, but 2022 obviously was a huge step forward for us. As far as the state of NASCAR, I see Brittany, you give it a B in the chat. Honestly, I need to think about this. This is going to be a sleep on it kind of thing, because initially I'm going to give it a C-, because when you have multiple drivers go down with concussions and one forced into early retirement, I don't know how I can give you a passing grade. NASCAR took a huge back step safety-wise this season, and because of that, it's a failure to me. On track, very hit or miss, and I don't care if we have people who were at risk more, and it is more dangerous for the drivers on the racetrack, on pit road, and for the fans in the stands, no passing grade. So Jonathan Osuna, we love you, sir. Thank you so much for that, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. Brittany in the chat, love to the family. Really appreciate that. And last year I did lose my grandfather too, so that's another monkey wrench in my life. So it's been a year, y'all. But truly, I thank you guys for coming and hanging out. Bats, do you want to say anything to the people, or you just want to cuddle? Brittany in the chat, I think the concept of the next gen works with 19 winners, a lot of first-time winners, but yes, safety needs to change. I'm almost at a point where I want to say throw this car out and go back to the old one until this one's ready. And if this car takes another 5 years of R&D before it hits the racetrack again, so be it. And I'm a realist. I know that that's not possible, but at the same time, I'd like to see it. And it's not possible because those cars are essentially gone. They've been cut up, sold off, and they're gone. And the people who built those race cars have been laid off or moved to other projects within the NASCAR world. Joey Logano is your 2022 NASCAR Cup Series champion. Thank you so much for watching. For Shifting Gears, you can give me a follow on the social media accounts up there. Links are in the bio. For Shifting Gears, I'm Alan Bailey. We will see you out at the track. Bye, Gearheads. Say bye, Bats. Say bye, Bats. She really wants to be fed and petted, so she doesn't care. So fine, you go away. All right. Thank you so much, Gearheads. We will see you at the track very soon. Bye now.